Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of American Rust. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really liked the opening, and just kind of I thought it was so interesting, right, he's fixing his pills, he crushes up two and he measures them out, but then it comes to the third one, he just pops it. So, and I was like, okay, so maybe that's kind of what that is about. Because I like that opening is kind of without a lot of context, it's without a lot of dialogue either to a certain extent. You have everything with Isaac taking care of his dad, but then he steals his dad's money. He's got that SAT thing taped to his leg. What's that about? We don't know. He's meeting up with Billy for what purpose? What it is? Because whatever it is, Billy's whoa, I didn't actually think you were going to do it. Now, once again, a lot of that's out of context because we're going to be filled in about everything. Because I wasn't expecting it that we were going to jump back 6 months into the past. Because that's to give you a better understanding of how we got to where we are. At least kind of the jump off points that led us to that point at the very least. But I thought it was interesting because Jeff Bridges' character, Jeff Daniels, I said Jeff Bridges, jeez. Jeff Daniels' character, Dale, was kind of stalking Grace a little bit. I was like, oh, that's a little weird. I was like, is she your ex or something? To some extent she is. We don't know fully what the history is between Grace and Dale. Obviously it's kind of a hookup situation, but beyond that, we don't know if they were together in the past, and then all these years later, life has presented an opportunity for them to be together now, so maybe because she's in a weird spot with her, well, at least Billy's dad. I don't know if that's her husband necessarily, whatever the case may be. But I love that whole thing when Steve was calling him up. It's oh, you shooting off, hunting off season. He's there's no such thing as off season on my property. If it's on my property, I can shoot and kill. I can do whatever I want to on my property. If someone comes over, he was even saying I'm making an excuse they were on my property. And I love that Steve is I'm gonna forget all that. He's don't forget all of it because you don't want to end up on my property dressed as a deer or something like that. I legitimately laughed because I was oh, that's kind of funny in an effed up way. But basically he's responding to an anonymous call at a scene. I immediately was I think the body was going to be Isaac, because Isaac was the one reluctant, because Billy saw some dude named Pete go in somewhere, and it's oh, I remember his foot being in my back, and I'm okay, still a lot of non-context to that. So when Isaac followed him in there, I was it's probably going to be a thing of Isaac's going to end up dead. All we got was they did a good job of making it keeping you in suspense, because the moment Dale comes there, he's standing over a body, but you don't get to see who it is, and then we hard cut to 6 months earlier. And so we get a lot more context with some of the stuff, Grace and Billy's house. Well, at least Grace's house was getting sold by the bank. She goes to find her husband who's sleeping with someone else, because it's right, I had nowhere else to go because I guess they're in a rough spot, and it's why are you standing here? Because it's he's even being hey, maybe we should go get breakfast. She's hey, and then the lady he's with is I think her name's Tiffany, is oh, I'm gonna make you some drippy eggs, and Grace is really? He's I had needed somewhere to stay. Interesting enough, Virgil being played by Mark, was it Pellegrino? Played Lucifer / Satan on Supernatural, is kind of the thing I best know him from. But the actor who plays his son, Billy, I know him best from Colony. I think that's the first thing I ever saw him, and it's at least the thing I know him best from. I mean, then there's also Jeff Daniels. And the actress who plays Grace, I feel I know her from something. I'm blanking on her name, but it's I saw her name in the credits, but I'm blanking on it right now. But it's I feel I've seen her in something too, and I just don't know what. I also love that whole bit between her and her coworkers, because it's she's having a rough spot with money, and it's well, home dude will our boss will probably pay, because it's yeah, he was probably over trying to sniff some bit of Grace's essence off the chair, and it's yeah, and one of the ladies, I think her name was Lisa, was I would take a shit on this chair and let him watch, and everyone's looking at her what did you just say? And she's what? They're I don't know. One of them's I don't know what you were just saying. She's come on, I'm not the only one that's done something like that. And then what was it, Bethany's like, you in your own lane right there. And she's like, well, I guess we just roll with different crowds. I felt so bad for her. She put herself out there. It's like, you shouldn't have done that because you fell a little, you were a little too loosey-goosey with some like stuff that you've done that was like, whoa. I thought we were opening up here. I thought we were, it's like, I was kind of halfway joking, but also serious because like, oh, like if he would, like if it meant paying my heating bill or whatever, like I'll gladly do that in front of him. But it's like, the fact is you went there immediately means you've done that before. You've even implied it with like, oh, we've all done that before. It's like, nope, you're in your own lane. I felt so bad for her in that moment. But nevertheless, in the grand scheme of things, there's something we still don't know about, even though over the course of the episode is like why Billy, because he has he got offered a D1 scholarship, but he never took it. It's like, why did he stay? Maybe it's just like, maybe it's for his mom, or maybe it's just like, because later on he's talking to Isaac, and because Isaac kept being like, why are you friends with me? Like, why? Like, I understand, like, he's like, yeah, you helped me out in high school. It's like, yeah, but we're past that now. Like, why present day are you still friends with me? He's like, because like it turns out like Billy and Isaac's sister Lee, they have a past, but it's like Lee graduated like early and she's married now, living in New York, so there's a good chance she's not going to come back, which Isaac's dealing with that because now he gets stuck dealing with, he has to be the one that kind of takes care of their dad. That responsibility kind of falls solely on his shoulders if she never comes back. But it also seems like Isaac might be like responding like that because his dad's a bit of an asshole. It's like, I don't want to be stuck with that bastard. He'd even started the conversation pretty morbidly because he was like, yeah, like, do you think someone murdered my mom? He's like, Billy's like, I think I'm not the right person to ask. He's like, yeah, they found like 10 pounds of like rocks. So do you think someone put those rocks in her and then pushed her in and she died? I'm like, I'd assume, me just being me, I'd assume they killed her first and then they try to dispose of the body by like weighing it down. That seems like I'm gonna do that afterwards thing. Not unless it was a suicide thing, but the way he was kind of implying, maybe it's still kind of up in the air. Maybe it was kind of like, oh, like it was labeled a suicide, but he's wondering like maybe my mom was murdered. It was like 4 years ago, but I think wasn't he the one saying like, yeah, that's what my dad was kind of saying, and he's a moron. So, but obviously it's like Isaac tries to get close to Billy, but Billy is like, Isaac, don't. Like, I guess it's like, don't try to, like, comfort me or whatever. Because it was like, why are you my friend? He's like, because you're the only one that makes me feel like I'm actually worth something. I was like, that's sad. Because obviously his mom, that's implying like his mom doesn't make him feel like that. Because it definitely seems like there is a bit of a contentious relationship there. Because initially, like, Isaac walks into the ice and gets brought under, and Billy ends up saving him and dragging him to the surface. But when he gets home, he's like taking off his clothes and like he's in the shower, like running it because obviously like he's trying to like heat up his body before like hypothermia sets in or something. But the moment his mom got there, she was just kind of like walking past all his soaking clothes. It's like, you running the hot water and stuff like that, I'm going to pay like $30 a day. And then it's also like, because the thing is, like, she just assumed the worst of like, oh, my son's just being a dick. And then she walked in on him and like sitting in the bathtub with the water spraying down him. And she's apologizing later because she's like, right, I didn't mean to. I guess it's like, I didn't try to understand the situation. Like, maybe he explained afterwards. Because she was like, oh, like burn some firewood or something. But like, I still don't know if he told her everything that went down because he was saving his friend's life. And, but I think maybe it's just kind of like, right, I shouldn't be chewing you out over something like that. Because it's like, yeah, we have money issues and stuff like that. But it's like, obviously something happened and I'm sorry, but he just kind of like walked away afterwards. And like, maybe that adds to the contentiousness of the relationship he has with his mom, where it's just kind of like, maybe it's just kind of a thing like you never really listen. You're kind of off in your own world. And I sadly have to like do my own thing in certain regards. Like, he loves his mom, obviously. He was there helping her like when they were potentially about to sell the house. But like when the banks were doing their thing, Virgil showed up with some of his boys with guns out and everything. It's like, oh my God, my buddy's house is about to. Oh, can I see that booklet of what they're selling? Oh, this house, it's my buddy's house. He's over there. You got any questions about it? Just ask him. And the lady's just kind of like, no. Like all the people there got freaked out. And I love that the guy running the thing is like talking to. He's like, oh. He's like, oh, like, do you think all those people with guns kind of potentially ruined the banker dude? Was like, yeah, I think that could. He's like, oh, I'm agreeing with you. It could be. And he's just kind of like, I mean, they're not technically doing anything illegal. Because the guy was like, I'm from somewhere. But he's like, actually, I think he was saying like, he's like, I'm from, what did he say? Like, I'm from I forgot what he was saying, like, and I don't remember if Dale was saying, like, we're closer to West Virginia on, like, how the way things are handled here or something like that, because I think the dude was like, I'm from Pennsylvania, he's like, hey, we're closer to, like, West Virginia and how things are kind of handled here, but it's like, I'm gonna handle this, you know, police business wise, and I'm gonna get Steve over here to kind of get you, take you, he's like, what, you're kicking me out of town? He's like, no, for your own protection. I just saw Steve standing there for a couple seconds, so I'm ready whenever you are. I just love that whole thing. So, luckily, because of this, Grace was able to move back into her house and everything. So, things kind of worked out on that front. I do appreciate him getting alcohol from the bar and everything. And he's like, almost like, what the shit is this? It's like, that's good. Like, you know, she's like, you're lucky I didn't just put like spritzer in there and pretend it was champagne. It's decent enough stuff. Just keep your mouth shut and just pour and you'll be good. And she's like, I got some condoms here. He's like, if your dad would smack you for a comment like that, she's like, you're right, that was inappropriate. I was like, that was just such a weird dynamic of like I get she was like making a dirty joke, but I guess it's like, I was around when I know who your dad was, and he would not have allowed you to make some like wisecrack like that, something inappropriate like that. But also like, I knew you when you were in your diapers or something. Like maybe it's kind of something like that of like, watch your mouth, kid. I don't know. But he was also talking with his doctor about his medication. It's like, right, it's kind of like, he's basically taking kind of like uppers and downers, like medication wise. And he's like, I actually don't even know what I was at like a neutral state. I don't even know what that was like anymore. Like when you've been on medication for so long, he's like, it's hard to say like, you know, is it really doing any more good than it has been before? It's like, I don't know. It's also like, right, make sure you give me any extra medication because, you know, kind of that thing of like the type of medication he's on, I guess, is like, can be abused. So that's why he's kind of like, yeah. Because I know one of the pills he was taking was Zoloft, which in my mind, like when I hear Zoloft now, like I always associate it with the Dance Gavin Dance song. What is it? Me and my friend Zoloft are doing just fine. Is that it? Or is it me and my friend Zoloft are just fine? It's the title, I believe. It's one of their older songs. But that's what, when I hear Zoloft, I immediately go to that. But regardless, it definitely, when you look at Billy's situation, obviously, like, he's at the bar with those people and stuff like that. It's just kind of like, it's almost like that fake smile of just like, right, this is the life you're trapped in. And like I said, the question of like, why didn't he take that D1 scholarship? Like, why did he stay in his town? Did he just feel like he was unworthy of it? Like, maybe on some level he was waiting for Lee. Like, maybe because things didn't work out between him and Lee, it just kind of broke his drive to leave that town. Because I think Isaac and him had talked about it, like, present day, like where it was kind of whether doing stuff for yourself, kind of like you've only ever left this town for like other people, you've never kind of done it for yourself type of thing. So it's like, what's the story behind that? Maybe we'll kind of learn a little bit more later on. But after he had left the bar, he ends up calling up Lee. And, you know, he's like, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but, like, I need you to know about your brother's situation. He walks into, like, I don't think he's in a good spot. You need to talk to him. And she's like, why wouldn't I want to talk to you? He's like, you know, you haven't talked in a couple years. You got married. Congratulations. So it's still that awkwardness between them because, like, I think she feels it, but it seems like she just had to get away. Like, because her dad was making some wisecracks about like, oh, you're only marrying him for the money and stuff like that. Like, oh, you should bring your hubby around us. Or are you too ashamed of us? Is he too good to, like, you know, be around folk like us? Which I'm sure that probably pisses Isaac off. Once again, it's like, right, you're leaving me with him. Like, you could pull me out of this town and at the very least be there for me, but you're kind of leaving me behind because it's not like, you know, it's like, right, rather than talking to me in this moment, you're just kind of like, oh, you got to go and you'll talk to me later. It's like, yeah, like he's fallen to the wayside. Just like, I think probably like him and his dad probably never had the best relationship, but now it's like, I have to take care of you. Mom's gone. Sis is pretty much bailed on you and me, and it's only you and me now. So like, I think that just makes him, I don't know. But, she did talk about something interesting where she was talking about, like, basically living the life that she lives. Like, it is kind of nice being in New York sometimes. And even Billy been like, sometimes. And she's like, well, it's the whole situation of, like, she was like, I was on a plane and, like, looking down below. And she was having these thoughts of, like, maybe people shouldn't live this type of life. Which he was like, yeah, I've never been on a plane my entire life. Which I can I'm in a very similar boat. I'm probably one of those people that will like, well, I'm not living in my hometown anymore, but I still live in the same state. I've never really seen the country. I've never seen the world. And I'm probably one of those people that never will. I'm probably going to be one of those people that stays in the same state, not the same hometown, but that's only because circumstances led to me not living in my hometown anymore. You know, if it weren't for those circumstances, I probably would be that dude that still lived in my small hometown, just, you know, which is a very depressing thought to think about, but it's like, it's a possibility, because I'm in like I live in like a somewhat, it's a city. I live in a city, you know, I lived in a town. My hometown is legitimately what you'd call a town. Regardless, not trying to make it about me, but it's a comparison of like, I get it, of like, right, when you kind of like feel like you're pigeonholed in one life, that you feel like, I'm thinking that's what it is for Billy. Like, he thinks like, my life can never amount to much. I will never amount to much. You know, I mean, that could be me projecting my own insecurities and stuff like that onto this particular character. But I feel like there's something in that vein of like, once again, like, why you didn't take that D1 scholarship. But he bumps into, that dude bumps into him, because I was about to say, he bumps into, no, that dude bumped into him, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry about that, dude. He's like, oh, you're that QB. He's like, yeah, we played you once senior year or whatever. He's like, you suck. Yeah, you're right. I was like, he took it in stride. He's like, yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, I heard you got a D1 scholarship. That's BS. He's like, yep, okay. He's like, once again, you sucked. It's like, okay. He's like, go ahead, hit me. Give you a free one. He's like, no, I'm good. He's like, go ahead. And he's like, please don't do this. And then it turns into a tussle, but your boy Billy kind of lays it down. That just kind of puts him in a chokehold. He's like, I don't want to choke you out, so I'm going to let you go and then just walk away. Just let me walk away. It's all good. And as he's walking away, home dude gets like, he got a blade. I didn't know what it was. Apparently, it's the blade of like a bayonet. And I'm like, even later on, it's like, how the hell did he get his hands on that? I guess 18-year-olds or whatever are very resourceful nowadays or something. Because I think this is a little bit into the past because of the whole Hillary Clinton thing on television. I think that was kind of, so it is a couple years ago, I think, because I think it's implying like, oh, she might, because in the bar it was like, oh, she might run. So I'm assuming this is like 2015, 2016 type of thing. Well, regardless, home dude like took a slice at Billy. Billy was just legitimately defending himself. He knocked the guy down. And then he was just like, the guy got up again, and then Billy like whacked him again, and we cut away from him. I was like, don't tell me, like, it doesn't sound like it's murder. It was just kind of the thing of like, it's that thing of like, if a criminal is running away and you still keep shooting at them, you are liable for that, because it's like they're no longer a threat. But it's that thing of like, right, that conversation becomes that later on. It's like the adrenaline's pumping, and to be fair, the dude was getting up. He was reaching for the blade he had in his hand. I think Billy was in the right to kind of knock, but it's like, right, like if he was in defense of himself in that moment, it's the whole conversation of why didn't he just walk away? He tried to talk his way out of it. It just didn't work. The guy was a drunk idiot, but it's like, you still should have just legitimately walked away. He choked him out and then walked away, but the guy was drunk and prideful. His pride was hurt, so that's why he had to make, you know, granted there was a lot of witnesses. It came at the most awkward time, because while this is happening, Dell and Grace are doing their thing, which that's a whole complicated thing, because I guess like Virgil's still kind of in their life. It's like, oh, Virgil hasn't lived here in a year, but it's still like, right, we're both, you know, it's like, right, he hoped, you know, he's the one that actually is the reason why you were able to get the house back, because he's like, right, we're both two men pining over the same woman. But when they were kind of doing their thing, about to go to the bedroom, is when he got the call from Steve, and he rolled up on the crime scene and sees the video, and there's that guy Pete with his boot on Billy's back, and it's like, now we know what Billy was referencing at the beginning of the episode about Pete. But then Dale comes over, he's like, you're done. And it's like, I got budget cuts and you made my decision that much easier. It's like, the fact of the matter is, you show up drunk on your job, you're waving your gun around. It's like, oh, like, I have seniority over that Chinese guy. And it's like, all right, well, the Chinese guy did this. And then he's like, the Chinese guy is actually Korean, you dipshit. I love that. You know, it's like, right. Kind of putting him in his place, and is like, give me your gun, and he takes Billy away, and Billy makes this reference of like, oh yeah, go ahead, send me away, that way you'll finally have my mom onto yourself, until my dad comes running down that dirt road. I thought he was implying like, my dad's going to come up the dirt road, gun in hand, and he's going to take back my mom, in a sense of like, oh, he's going to, like, I thought that's what he was kind of implying. It's like, no, what he was implying is what we see later on, that no matter what you have with my mom, like, you'll always kind of play second fiddle. Like, the moment my dad pops back into her life, she always takes him back, type of thing, is what he was kind of implying. So, And obviously, like, Grace was not too happy when she rolls up. It's like, did Dale arrest my son? And you have Steve being like, I can't help you. Like the fact that you have to wait for his lawyer to show up and everything because he is an adult. And so she's like, my son, he's a good kid. He's always been a good kid. So, but he's just like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But Dale goes above and beyond. And even the judge, knowing like, oh, is it because your relationship with his mom? It's like, yeah, it's a small town. Like, there's going to be whispers. Everybody knows, everybody knows everybody type of thing. Plus everybody knows what everyone's business is. So, but I thought it was interesting when Dale kind of tried to make his case, because it's like, see, right here from this perspective of the video, the guy had gotten a knife up and he was about to go up again before Billy whacked him out. But it's still like, you should have just walked away still. It's like, the guy was still a threat anyway. It's like, I guess Billy was supposed to let for him swing again and then defend himself. I guess that's supposed to be legally how it's supposed to go down. But Dale kind of tells a story of his time, because it turns out like the reason why he's on the medication is because of his time in the military, because he's a vet. But also it seems like it's connected to his time in, like, was it some other police department he worked in before this town he's in now. So it's like PTSD from all of that. So what went down in his previous policing profession job, who knows? But he had basically told a story about, like, right, someone being like circling around the town and having a satchel, a disc back in his military days. He lined up his sights and then he pulled the trigger. He's like, I emptied like 20 to 30 shots. The next day they went to examine what was left of the body. There was no satchel. Could someone have come and got it? Maybe. Was it there in the first place? So it's like, maybe I saw something that wasn't necessarily there, but for him, it's like, all he's trying to say is that when it comes to men, that they kind of get lost in it a little bit when you're defending yourself. Like, that's all that you kind of see, and not even just men, young men essentially. So he's trying to defend Billy, which it works out. Like, he gets 6 months probation at the end of it, but it still puts a damper on Dale was trying to do the right thing. He was trying to help out Billy. Now it's like, were you helping out Billy because, hey, the kid deserves a second chance, or were you just helping him out because you are trying to, like, you have your situation with his mom? It doesn't seem like your reasoning was all that altruistic. So it's not like, oh, you're a good cop trying to do the right thing. Because I think I would personally side more with Billy under those circumstances, but in the eyes of the law and everything, and considering how everything played out, it's kind of like, you can see why it kind of loses some of its luster as self-defense in certain regards, like with the final blow and everything. It makes sense. But even the judge throwing out there, like, why didn't you take that D1 scholarship? I'll never know, but maybe you should be considering stuff like that for your sake as well as everyone else's. So, but the moment Dale rolls up, it's like, oh, she's just trying to make an excuse of like, oh yeah, like, I don't, but then like Virgil comes out and it's like, oh, hey, he's like, oh, let's take that steak and champagne, like, we have a lot to celebrate. Yeah, he's like, oh, no, I didn't know you were celebrating. And then it's like, here, and hands it to him. She's like, yeah, you have a lot to celebrate. Your son, he got away with just probation for what he did. Landing that blow on someone who was on their knees. It's like, yep, you have a lot to celebrate. So kind of like middle finger and shaming them a little bit. And she's like, give him the wine back. It's like, well, he's already in the car. She's just like, damn it. It's like, yeah, not how she wanted that to play out. But it kind of plays into, like I said, what Billy said of like, no matter what, like, my dad comes down the dirt road and so kind of puts a little bleh. Now it kind of makes a little more sense, like, why he's kind of stalking her just despite everything. But to be fair, we don't know the full story because that 6 month period, I'm curious how they're going to handle that over the course of the season. Is it going to be we're going to flash back to over the course of those 6 seasons, or are we going to stay present day and there's going to be stuff present day linking to, like, we won't actually get to see it, but we'll see, like, we'll hear connections to what happened in that 6 months. I'd assume we'd flash back to it because, like, there's still, that's a lot of story left unanswered to why we got to where we were. Like, why was Pete there? Who was he meeting up with? Why did things turn sideways like they did? There was even that thing with Isaac and his sister I had skipped over. It's like, right, mom would be kind of ashamed or upset for you to be talking to me in English and not in Spanish. So she's like, why did you do what you did? And for him, it's like, I just wanted to see how cold it was. And she's like, how cold was it? I couldn't tell. I lost feeling immediately. But then he was like, at the bottom, there was like some comfortableness in it. He just does not seem like he's in the right state of mind. And he's just kind of like, he made some remark that he ended up having to apologize to his sister, because he was like, you're married and everything, so you're less likely to come back. I'm the one that told Billy about you getting married. She's like, I know. And it's like, you're not going to come back. You're just going to kind of leave me with all of this. And like I said, he made some remark and he's like, I'm sorry. And they just kind of talk about her husband for a little bit. Because it's the whole thing about the name situation. Because it's like, right, he has a Spanish last name, but he looks white. And she's like, I look Spanish, but I have an English name, but I look Spanish. So she's like, we're gonna keep whatever makes it that much more confusing, type of thing. So, but present day, we find out that the body is actually Pete's body. I was like, okay, I honestly wasn't expecting it. I expected it to be Isaac's body, but now both of them are kind of neck deep in this. At the very least, the only one who knows Billy's involved is Dale, because before things went pear-shaped, like, well, at least before the cops roll up, the other cops roll up, he gets rid of the jacket, at least hides it. So it's like, once again, like, why are you covering for Billy? Is it something in that 6-month time frame? Is it just because you still care about Grace, or is it because you care about the kid because you think like, oh, he's been through a rough patch and you actually legitimately want to help him? Like, once again, it still makes it seem not so altruistic, because it just seems like you are trying to get in his mom's pants. And in her, pun, somewhat intended, be in her good graces. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. There's still, like, obviously a lot of the stories being told in this manner just to leave a lot of stuff open, to be like, oh, how did we get to point A to point B? What happened in that space in between, those 6 months and everything? So he ended up picking up something. I didn't know. It looked like it might have been a tooth. I don't know. What went sideways, we don't know. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.